You are recording this meeting. Okay, so we are recording now. Good. So I'm going to, if it cuts, let me know. If the connection starts cutting and you can't hear me, let me know. I'm going to share my screen. So here's the screen. It's being shared. I hope you see it. Okay. So let's start. Can you see the screen? Yes, you
Monsieur,
can. Yeah.
Noor tells you that she's gonna be a bit late.
No. So can you see the screen?
Yes.
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 Okay, good. Okay, great. So let's start. Today we start the serious stuff. Last time it was a kind of introduction where I wanted to show you mainly the relation between movement and images. I hope by now this relation is more or less clear. You just need to get a notion of that. We said last time that with a kind of with the event of the 20th century, you have a kind of new conception of the relation between images and movements, and this new relation is practically expressed in the different domains, be it in physics, in philosophy, also in biology, in the arts, in practically everywhere. So I'm going to turn off my camera. Okay. So we said that you have this kind of relation between images and movement. So if you take, for example, thermodynamics. In thermodynamics, as you know, if you heat water, thermodynamics is the science of the displacement of energy. If you heat water and you cool the other side, what will happen is that you start seeing a flow of water. Now, if you keep this kind of intensive disequilibrium between the hot and the cold, what will happen is that you will see forms which will start to emerge. And these forms are going to be made of movements. This is just another example where you see this relation between image and movement. So we said last time, you see, and this even you can take it to something more experiential. You know maybe the story of these two Greek painters who were in a competition, and these two painters actually they one of these two painters painted a basket of fruits so well that the birds came to eat from the painting. Now, when the jury saw that, they thought that painting because it was able to mislead the birds. So when they went to the other one, they asked him to remove the veil from his painting. And he told them, okay, go ahead, remove the veil, you do it, you remove the veil from my painting. And when they went to remove the veil from his painting, they saw that actually it was a trompe-l'oeil, the painting itself was the veil. And they gave him the first prize because the first painter was able to trick the animals while he was able to trick the jury. So all the story to tell you something simple, which is that actually when you look at a trompe-l'oeil, I don't know if you experience that, as soon as you know that it's a trompe-l'oeil, it becomes flat. So what does depth really mean? What depth really means is that you're able to project yourself in the visual space you are seeing which means that you're able to make actions in this visual space. So I gave you the example of the trompe-l'œil, that as long as you're believing that it is indeed deep, meaning now what does it mean that I'm believing that it's deep, meaning it has a depth? It only means that I'm able to forecast, to project actions in this space. Now, as soon as that I see or experience that I'm unable to project these actions in this space, what happens is that this space flattens all of a sudden, and now you know that this is just an optical illusion and it's not really a depth. So I'm telling you all of these things just for you to see the relation between movement, which is in this case your capacity to move and to project your action in space, and the way you perceive the image. In this case, you perceive it as a deep image. Now you can push this in all directions. If you take an animal, let's say, again, a bird, the way the bird looks at a tree is not the same way as you look at a tree. Because when you look at a tree, what do you see? You just see, a bunch of leaves and branches overlaying each other. But given that you can't really move into that space, you just see it as a fuzzy thing. On the other hand, if you take a bird looking at a tree, he knows that he can jump from this branch to this other one, and he can lie his foot on this leaf, and you see that now the tree becomes much more animated, complex, and much more readable in a way. Action, in this sense, is what is going to inform the visual field. In this specific example, action is going to complexify the visual field. So you can see that your degree of perception, how accurate your perception can be, and actually what you actually see is related to how you act upon what you see. I'll give you another example. So if you take something that we call a chair, you're standing there and you look at this visual and you say, it's a chair. Now, Bergson says, how do you know that this is a chair? Again, if you're a bird or a dog, they wouldn't see it as a chair. Now, why they wouldn't see it as a chair? Because these animals don't have the capacity to sit, meaning to have their back straight and their legs folded. So they don't have this action called sitting, and hence this visual cannot be perceived as a sitting place. So what Bergson is saying is this. If you look at the visual field, actually it's a very amorphous thing. You have all of these things that are there, but it's only because you can project actions on what you see that what you see starts getting, in a way, individualized and separated from the other things. This is why you can consider that a stone, can be a chair because you can perform on this rock the act of sitting. You can consider that a piece of wood is a chair or a chair is a chair because all of these different visuals, actually, what do they have in common? They have in common the fact that you can perform with them or upon them the act of sitting. So here again, you see how perception relates to action. Now, the last example to conclude this kind of reminder of last time and a little bit of expanding on last time is what we call consciousness or conscious perception. You see, Bergson says that if you go to a doctor and the doctor hits your knees, in these reflex acts, in the arc reflex and the reflex circuit, you don't perceive anything. Now, why you don't perceive anything? Because Bergson says the movement goes from the periphery to the periphery immediately without any interruption between the movement received, which is the doctor hitting on your knee with a hammer, and the movement given, which is your leg giving a kick up towards the doctor. Now, why you don't have a perception in this case? Because you don't have a hesitation or a gap between the movement received and the movement given. What does it mean? You know, Heidegger, he has an example which is known as the hammer example. The hammer example is that as long as you're hammering automatically, or if you want, as long, it's an example that we all know, if you're not a carpenter or something like that, as long as you're driving without noticing what you are doing while you're driving, you have a kind of automated movement that sets in, and this automated movement is going to not allow you to perceive something. On the other hand, as soon as something jumps in your visual field while you are driving, you hesitate, and this is when you become aware that you are driving and you become aware of what you are seeing. In Heidegger's example, you become aware that you are holding a hammer when the hammer breaks. In this moment, you see the hammer as such, and you realize that it's there as a conscious perception. So what is a conscious perception in this sense? It is actually when you hesitate between a movement given and a movement received. What does it mean? It means that for you to say, I see something, you have to be able to look at it and for a little while not to know what to do with it. So you look at something, when you hesitate a little bit, this is when you really look, because at that moment you are suspending the movement received and you are not yet coupling it with the movement given. So if you want, these are different ways to just illustrate. You have more details in the notes. I hope you are reading them. To illustrate this relation between movement and images. And I've spoken now more precisely, more particularly on the relation not between any image and any movement, but the relation between a perceptive image and an active image, meaning what we call usually perception. So what is perception? You see, perception, usually we think that perception, you know, is very simple. You open your eyes and this is perception. Yes, but no. Because you see, in this aesthetics that you are doing, you cannot say that just the image as such is a perception. I explain. If you just look at a pen, you will never know, as I've said last time, that this image, if this image is a perception, if it is a memory, if it is a dream image, or something else. So when you look at something in this aesthetics we are dealing with, you cannot know what type of image you are dealing with. To know what type of image you are dealing with, you have to couple the image with something else. So you have to couple the image with something else. As you know, in movies, there's a very simple way to express that. What they do is that they show you the face of a person and then an image, let's say a bottle, and you understand by coupling these two images that the man is seeing a bottle. So you see, to have a perception, you need to have two images or two movements, because image movement is the same, and you have to have a gap between the two images. I'll give you an example. If you film someone in a movie sleeping, then you film light coming on his face, and after, let's say, 2 or 3 seconds, you see that the man is raising his hand and blocking the light. What do we have in this very simple sequence? What you have is a movement received, which is the light. Then we have a gap, and then we have a hand which rises up to block the light. this is the movement given. As you can see, when you do your montage like that, image of light, gap on the face, and then a hand to block the light, we understand that from the depths of his slumber, this person was able to perceive the effect of light, and he reacted to this light by raising his hand. So if you want the most general, constructive definition of perception, is that it is a difference between a movement given and a movement received. This is, if you want the most general definition, or if you want the constructive definition of perception, which means that any time or in any medium, or whenever you want to express perception, you will have to show a movement received, a receiver or a gap, and then a movement given. If you don't have this difference, we will not understand if the movement is received or not. Now, when it comes to perception, the first polarity that comes out is the difference between subjective and objective perception. Now, what is a subjective perception and what is an objective perception? Here I am speaking nominally. As you can see here on this tree, you have the subjective-objective difference, which is in the nominal kind of definition. And the subjective polarity means that we can always assign a perceiver and a perceived. It's very simple. In our example with the light, when the light comes on the face of the man, we consider that he is the perceiver, and then the perceived is the light. Or if in a movie you put the image of a face and then the image of a bottle, we consider that the subject of perception is the face, and the bottle is the object of perception. But you can push this definition a little bit further. Actually, if you want to define this a little bit better, will be a subjective perception, a perception where the perceiver is part of the group of the objects being perceived. What I'm saying is very simple. If you are filming or you are doing a painting from the point of view of the viewer, and the viewer is part of what he is seeing, we consider this to be a subjective perception. If, on the other hand, we are seeing an object and the one seeing this object is not part of the object or group of objects that he is seeing, we consider this to be an objective perception. I give you a very simple example. If you take if you take movies like this one, I hope you'll be able to see it now. Are you seeing the bike going down? Just someone say yes.
No. Oh, yes.
I can see it. I can see it.
Yes. So you see, this is what we call a subjective perception, because as you can see, we are with the guy going downhill, and we are really part of what is being perceived. Now, on the other hand, if you do something like a bird eye view, in movies sometimes they show you the city, they show you a kind of overall view of the city, and this kind of overall view is not really incarnated by anyone, and it's a kind of mental projection, or what we call God's eye view, meaning the view of God, because no one is really incarnating this position, hence you see it and you consider it to be objective. And of course here you have, or you can have, a flip between the subjective and the objective. For example, if you take Lewin's movie, Pandora's Box, I hope you are seeing now this movie here. So if you look at that, I'm going to skip all that. if you see here, not yet. If you see this shot, you think that it's a shot which is distant and which is looking at the situation without any like real human being looking at that. It's as if the person looking at the beach is outside of this context. It's as if it is an intellectual or a bird eye view. But then while the camera is pulling out, you see that there is a person looking at the beach. You see that there is a person, and hence we went from an objective shot to a subjective shot. I hope this distinction is clear. So I'm trying to tell you is this. If you want to think perception with the couple objective, subjective, well, it's a it's a polarity. It's not really a rigid category. It's really like two poles, and you can go from the one to the other, and you can flip into the one and vice versa. Meaning you could think that this is an objective shot, and then you realize that it's a subjective shot, and so on and so forth. What I'm telling you is very simple. You see it also a lot in movies. For example, when you have a dialogue with a shot counter shot, you know, you have the face of the man speaking and the woman replies. Godard, Le Mépris, for example, the scene between Piccoli and Brigitte Bardot. You have this kind of shot counter shot. They are in love, and you have this at one point a dialogue across the table. So you see the face of Piccoli, then you see the face of Brigitte Bardot, and you have this kind of reversal of the subjective into objective, because the face of Bardot is the subjective view of Piccoli, and then the face of Piccoli becomes the object of Bardot, and vice versa. Now, what's interesting in these things is to play on this couple. What things become really interesting here is when you are able to really like play on that. And one of the masters of this image form is Lubitsch. Ernst Lubitsch, which I think is a great movie maker. I hope you'll see his movies. You can watch Broken Lullaby or The Shop Around. And in The Broken Lullaby, Lubitsch shows a military march. And first, the military march is shown from a distance. And then it's shown from, so you think it's shown from a distance, then it's shown from a man standing. So you think that now the military march is seen from the man standing, seeing this march. Then the camera goes down, and you see that actually the man standing has lost a leg. And now you see the march through his leg. So I'll show you that here. I don't have the whole sequence, unfortunately. So these are objective shots. And here you see the shot from the leg of the soldier. Now, if you see the movie after this shot, you see that actually the man who was watching this is a man who has lost his two legs. And with this kind of oscillation on the couple, subjective, objective, the author, in this case Lubitsch, he's able to make a statement, a kind of humoristic statement on the war, which is like the war is something that ends up mutilating everyone by playing on this ambiguity, which is that who is going to incarnate the point of view. Okay, so I hope this is clear. You see, when you have a shot, whatever it is, like the shot we have seen in Lewin, you see the beach from a distance, you wonder, is this like an objective shot, meaning no one is seeing it, which is part of the movie, or is it a subjective shot, meaning actually someone part of the situation is seeing the shot? Now, you see, and here you have a kind of line of ambiguity. you really have a kind of line where we don't know when we are going to move from one position into the other, from the subjective into the objective. Now, many artists investigate, or they are going to play on this line of ambiguity. I'll show you a painting by Manet, which is Les Folies Bergères. I hope you can see it. Can you see this painting by Manet, Les Folies Bergères? Yes, no?
Yes, yes, yes.
Yes. Okay. So you can see the painting by, yes, great. Can you hear me well? Okay. So you see this painting, yeah? Now, as you can see in this painting, I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. You see, actually, the position of the painter is frontal. He's facing the waitress, and there's a mirror behind the waitress. And awkwardly, you have the man looking at the woman reflected in the mirror. Did you see how weird this is, or not yet? Anyone?
Yes, it doesn't make sense at all.
عم يعلق شوي عندي ما مبينة بعد. اوكي هلا بينت.
You see the picture? Yeah?
Yeah.
So do you see there's something weird in this painting?
Yes, that the guy, how he looks, how we can see him in the mirror, but at the same time we can't actually see where he's standing. When we're looking at the woman face à face.
Yes, so you, where is Manet putting you? In which position? Who are you in the painting? He's putting you in the position of the man.
Yes,
but at the same time, it's as if you are not the man, because you can't be facing the woman and be in the same time reflected on the right. You should be reflected behind the woman. And you see how he plays on putting the viewer now in two positions, where he is facing the woman, not facing the woman because he should be on the side, and he's in the same time part of the painting and not part of the painting because of this kind of impossible position. I hope you're seeing how you can play on this subjective, objective kind of couple.
Yes.
So if you take another canonic painter, which is Velázquez, I think you know this painting, which is Las Meninas. I hope you are seeing it now.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
You see in Les Menines or Las Meninas, you see it's a very weird painting. I hope you're going to go to YouTube and Google Las Meninas mystery. You'll see that a lot of people are trying to solve the riddle of this painting, because actually this is an impossible painting. You see, the painter is painting something here behind on the canvas, but at the same time, he cannot be painting this painting because we see him outside of the canvas. And you have a mirror reflecting the position of the king and the queen, so we are supposed to be standing there. And all of these relation makes it a bit of a riddle of what is Velázquez actually painting. Is he painting this, meaning the the daughter of the king and the queen, and this scene here reflected in a mirror which is in front of them? Or is he painting actually the whole painting, which is actually the painting we are seeing in front of us? And here you also see that you have this play on these positioning of the painter, the viewer, and the object being painted. Now, someone who is going to push this to an extreme is Escher. You know the work of Escher? You know his work? No? You know, he's known for stuff like that. Do you know that? You see here Escher, he makes this kind of impossible images. So as you can see, you have a viewer here who is looking at a tableau, at a painting, at a kind of illustration. Now this illustration includes buildings, and as you can see, this building here, which is in the illustration, has its column here, which is outside of the illustration, And actually, it includes the viewer, which is looking at the illustration. Did you see the loop?
Yes.
I'll let you meditate on the loop, and I'll show you. Yeah, I'll show you here an impossible positioning in a short clip. So some people try to analyze this drawing, and it came out like that. Now, this is the line of ambiguity here. Okay, I hope you saw that and you got the idea. You see, it seems that you have two lines of ambiguity, one cutting here, and the other one somewhere there, where you can go inside the painting. Did you see that? Yes, no?
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. So all I'm trying to tell you, when you look at these images, what's interesting is that they really mobilize this kind of ambiguity between subjective and objective. And you have many movie makers and artists who work on that. For example, you can do it in the narration, like in Nolan Inception. You've seen this movie, I guess. Everyone has seen it. You know Inception?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Inception, how does Nolan plays on that? You know, where is the subjective-objective line of indetermination, where at the end he needs to put something that connects both? You remember
his ring on the finger, or the thing that he flips?
Yes, exactly. You see, actually, you get lost. Is he in his dream or in the real world? This is the dichotomy between, am I part of the group I'm perceiving, or am I outside of it? Subjective, objective. Am I dreaming or in reality? And then he needs to create something, which is this flipping thing, that will create a kind of connection or border that can connect these two things. Okay?
Isn't it also maybe in Gaspar Noé movie? Maybe in Enter the Void?
Yes, yes, you're right. You're right. In Gaspar Noé, Enter the Void, you also have this game on I am in the image and outside of it with outer body experiences. You're right.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Now, all I'm trying to show you now is just to bring your attention on this kind of very slippery line, which is between objectivity and subjectivity. And this is how you create this kind of effects. Now, I will not go through all the effects. For example, you have also optical illusions where it's not anymore the position of the viewer which becomes ambiguous, but what is being seen. I'll show you just this. Okay, I hope you see this kind of beach thing. You're seeing it?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Yes. Okay, you see, this is more a kind of optical illusion or optical effect. And okay, it's part of these effects of what is being seen. So if you want, this is the first point. The first point is that when you deal with perception or with perceptive art, you have the possibility to really like invest in this kind of line of ambiguity, and you're able to make a statement, but not like the meaning of the story. You're able to really express an idea by by constructing your image in a way where you control the relation between subjective and objective polarities. For example, Lubitsch is able to make a funny, sarcastic, not sarcastic, a kind of humoristic critique of the war by showing you that you could be sitting here or there. Escher is interested in the infinite and in infinity, and he's able to convey that via these visual constructions that play on this polarity. Now, besides the subjective-objective polarity, we have what you call the semi-objective. The semi-objective is or relates to an experience where you are aware of yourself. I think we all went through that. Let's suppose you're invited to a formal dinner and you start saying things that you don't really believe in, and you feel that you become like self-aware and you perceive yourself. This is what you call a semi-subjective. You're not really perceiving an object nor flipping between object and subject. You are perceiving yourself as if yourself you were an object. If you want to illustrate that, you have something like this. This is Magritte's Not to be Reproduced. I hope you're seeing it. And as you can see, it's as if you are seeing yourself. Now, these treatments, you have many. For example, Murnau in The Last Laugh, which is the story. I hope you'll watch these movies, or at least the movie clips. So The Last Laugh is the story of a man who became rich all of a sudden. Okay, so this man used to be the doorman of the hotel, and here you see that he inherited a lot of money all of a sudden, because in this hotel he used to work as the WC cleaner, and the man died in the WC, and before he dies, he hugged him because he was dying, and he gave him he inherited all the fortune, because the man in his will said that he will give his money to the one who will hold him when he will die. So in any case, this guy that you will see here became very rich, and he's having dinner at the hotel. So he's very self-aware of himself now. And Murnau, at one point, he will show you that by making the camera move before him. I'll show you this. Okay, this is where he is self-aware. So at one point he leaves. This is, you see how he's filming the reactions when he passes. Okay, this was the shot I wanted to show you, where the camera is actually moving. The camera is moving a little bit behind him, like in that shot here. Here. In this shot here, you see it's very short shots. Anyway, the shots that you saw where they're bending just as he passes by. Now, this is another treatment to show you this kind of self-awareness or consciousness of oneself, you see this kind of traces remaining of the reactions of people while you are passing. So this is what you call a semi-subjective. I hope it's clear. Okay, so if you are dealing with this kind of thing, you have the subjective, objective, and then you have the being with, which can express the semi-subjective shot, where while you are walking, you feel that your awareness is moving along with you and recording what is going on because you are very self-aware of yourself. Now, the last one in the nominal definition is the free indirect. Now, what is the free indirect? All of this, I hope you get it. It's technical language for you to be able to speak the English. So what is the free indirect? Now, the free indirect, or l'indirectly, was theorized by Pasolini. Pasolini, Google him. He's a great poet, movie maker, human being, whatever you want. So he's absolutely great. And Pasolini wrote a lot about cinema and about the images and how to think images. And in L'expérience hérétique, or the heretic experience, he was trying to think the new cinema, or what he calls the cinema poésie, the poetic cinema, which is the cinema that appeared in the 60s and 70s, the cinema of people like Godard, Antonioni, Pasolini himself, Bertolucci to some extent, and Romer, etc. You know, La Nouvelle Vague in France, and a big chunk of the Italian neo-realism. So in this book, Pasolini has a problem. Pasolini says, you see what the problem with perception is, that when it comes to literature, and I remind you, he's a poet and he's a great writer, when it comes to literature, it is quite easy to express the way someone sees things as an individual, because, hi, hello, welcome. Okay, so Pasolini is saying that
it's cut and I got connected again.
Okay, I thought a new student came. So can you hear me now, all of you?
No. No.
What? Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Yes, we can. Yes.
Okay, so what am I saying is that Pasolini had a problem, which is how can you really convey the way?
Again, and it just came back. I don't think I'm gonna be able to follow the class. My internet is very bad.
Okay, so put it. It's okay. I can't do anything. The session is recorded, so you'll have to listen to it later as a recorded thing. But stay on if you can, and
okay.
You know, hear whatever you can. Okay, it's okay.
Yeah, I'm staying on.
Okay. No worries. Okay, so what I was trying to say is this: is that Pasolini had an issue, which is how can you really show how people see things? Let's suppose you are a peasant and you arrive to a city. How can we show the way you really see the city as a peasant and not as someone else? You know, if I film a train station, you know, if I couple this image with a guy who lives in the city or with a guy who never been to the city, it looks the same. So the whole issue, Pasolini says, is how can we really show in the image and not in by making the peasant or the bourgeois make faces like open his mouth and stuff like that, but really how can I show how someone sees something differently from someone else? And Pasolini says, you see, when it comes to when it comes to language, it's quite easy, because all what you need to do if you're writing a novel is you open the quotes and you make him speak like, let's say, a peasant with an accent from southern Italy, and all of a sudden you feel the way he speaks the world differently from a bourgeois. But the problem is, how can you do that with the image? And this is why he introduces the notion of the free indirect. The free indirect means simply that I am going to show you the way I see the world via a character by distorting the image. I explain, it's not complicated. Let's take, for example, a movie by Antonioni. Antonioni was quite concerned with the advance of capitalism, consumer society, alienation, you know, all these things that I think you heard about. And Antonioni, hence, he wants to express the point of view of the modern man, which is a neurotic. He's completely dissociated from his environment. He just consumes. He consumes things that he doesn't know. He doesn't know what he consumes. His emotional life is a mess. And hence he wants in the image to express this state of dissociation which neurotic people live. You know, a neurotic person is someone who feels disconnected from his immediate surroundings. He's not integrated, as you say, and Antonioni is going to do that. Now, how does Antonioni do that in the image? To do that in the image, Antonioni is going to have a recourse to a image treatment, which is that he's going to fix the environment and let his character float in this fixed environment. If you have watched an Antonioni, I hope you will notice next time you watch an Antonioni such as Deserto Rosso or the one with Nicholson, Special Reporter, or the Reporter movie.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. I'm gonna have to disconnect for 2 minutes because I'm moving spaces because there's a lot of people next to me. So just 2 minutes and I'll be back, okay?
Okay. So for the others, when you watch an Antonioni next time, please take note of the contrast between what is being said and where it is said. You will see, for example, that Antonioni in Special Reporter, I'll call it like that for the time being, he films a squabble between a man and a woman on the balcony of La Carrière, which is a building by Antonio Gaudi, which is absolutely incredible. And in this incredible building, which is made with very, very weird forms, he films a scène de ménage, a squabble between a man and his wife. And you see here this disconnection between the environment, which is the Antonio Gaudi building, and what is being said, which is the squabble between the man and the woman. So I'll show you here a sequence from Antonioni where you see how he's going to fix the frame. He's going to let his actor come in the frame and out of the frame without cutting. And you see that the frame, meaning the set, as we sometimes call it, becomes indifferent to what is happening inside the frame. And this creates this kind of disjunction between what is going on and this kind of placid world which surround what is going on, which contribute to this neurotic point of view. So I will show you that here. So here's the story of a woman which is neurotic in the movie. As you can see. I hope you'll note now the fixed frame. As you can see in this movie, which is Deserto Rosso, he frames with modern, kind of cheap modern architecture. I hope you saw that when he cut, he remained on the robot. So it's to have this what Pasolini calls a persistent framing. And here you see how this woman is like floating in this set, and she doesn't like relate to it. You have these lines, etc. Now, this is the contrast that Pasolini speaks about, which is this kind of disjointment of what is going on and this architecture that frames the things. In another shot in Deserto Rosso, you have a guy making a love declaration, and he's standing next to huge boats with steel and noises and stuff like that, and you have this kind of disconnection. So if you want, what Pasolini is trying to say in the indirect, free indirect, is that when you create this kind of what happens is that you're able to construct a point of view on everything you see in the movie. So if you take the case of Antonioni, the point of view, which is the only point of view that he's interested in, is to show you how much the modern world is neurotic, and he's able then to capture the whole movie from this one single point of view. And that what happens is that the character in the movie becomes the vehicle through which the author can express his own point of view by, in the case of Antonioni, making him disconnected from his environment, because the neurotic way of seeing things is to see them as disconnected from you. So I hope now you got this complex way of building this image, where you're able now to show that everyone is neurotic from a single point of view. Is this clear, or I repeat?
Clear.
It's clear.
It's clear. Okay. So I hope you see what you're doing here. So if you take the nominal definition of perception, you can play on the subjective-objective polarity, like Escher, Velasquez, Manet, etc., Lubitsch, and many others. You can create images of self-awareness, like in Murnau and Magritte, as a semi-subjective. And last, you can really have one fixed point of view on the whole movie, and this fixed point of view becomes, if you want, kind of the way you see things, the way you see the world. But in that case, you need to, of course, tweak the image. You need to do something to the image in order to express the point of view which is individualized, such as the point of view of the neurotic. You have, for example, Pasolini has the point of view of a kind of religious bestiality, and you have many points of view that you can build like that. Now I'll move to something else. So far, you see, we didn't yet define perception in reality. You see, the couple subjective-objective is just a kind of convenient way to say that, you know what, he's seeing that, and that is being seen by him. It's not yet a realist or a real definition of what is a objective perception and what is a subjective perception. So now to move into the real definition. Now, the real definition of objectivity, says Bergson, well, it is simply when we will say that an image is objective, or a set of images express objectivity, when all the images interact on one another. On the other hand, we will say that an image is subjective when all the images relate to one privileged image. So what I'm saying is very simple. Let's suppose you want to make a movie about your street. You know, you live in Hamra, you want to make a movie about Hamra Street. Fine. You have here two options. You have what we call the documentary and the drama, or what people call, unfortunately, fiction and reality. So what is the difference really between a drama and a fiction? A fiction, in quote, I will use here now drama. Drama means that you are going to film Hamra from the point of view of a privileged character, which is, it can be you or the baker or the cop or the whoever who lives in Hamra. And you're going to show everything from his point of view. So you can show the baker going home, the baker sleeping, the baker selling bread, the baker selling bread to this guy, to that woman. And this is what you call a drama, even if it's a documentary. I hope now you're getting what Deleuze, Bergson are getting at. They're saying, you know what, it doesn't matter if you do it, if you write the script before or after. What really matters is the structure of the image. If you make what we usually call a documentary, I mean you go with your cam to Hamra and you start filming and following the baker, this is for Bergson a fiction. It's a why? Because the whole world is now centered on this privileged image, which is the guy who sells bread. It's a drama. On the other hand, if you start filming the different views on Hamra, the professor who lives there, the student, the baker, the cop, I don't know, the guy who sells clothes, the guy who sells books, and you really see this kind of polyphony where everyone is saying something, like when you have a kind of interview in a documentary. We call this a documentary, and this approach is more objectivity. So I hope what he's getting at, Bergson. What Bergson is saying, you know what? Subjective is when I relate all the images to one privileged image, and we are usually used to that. Why? Because usually we associate all the images of the universe that we see to one privileged image, which is which one? Which is, of course, our body. So this is why we have this kind of habit to believe that perception is subjective, because you know each time you see something, your body is there. And this is why you associate all the images to the center, you are the center, and this is why your usual perception, your perception by default, is a subjective perception. On the other hand, you can create ways, movies, books, etc., that are going to decentralize the perception. When you decentralize the perception becomes more objective, and the more you decentralize, the more objectivity you gain, and the more you centralize, the more you are into drama or subjectivity. So just to illustrate that, if you take something like, a thing that you know well, if you take something like Picasso. Picasso, if you take Les Demoiselles d'Avignon, you see this. I hope you're seeing it. So yes. Picasso, yes, you see it here. Okay, so Picasso, Les Demoiselles d'Avignon.
Wait, there's...
Yes, it's here now. Okay, you see it. Okay, so you know the story of Les Demoiselles d'Avignon, maybe. So I'll tell you the story of Les Demoiselles d'Avignon. Does anyone know the story of this very, very famous painting? No? Okay, so I'll tell you the story of Les Demoiselles d'Avignon. Demoiselles d'Avignon, actually, Avignon is a street where you had prostitutes. And as you can see here, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 naked women, and they are in a bed, not in a bed, standing and sleeping at the same time. And this is when you see the different points of view. So as you can see, this is going towards what? Towards objectivity, because he's showing you the different points of view in the same time. I think you heard that in your art history thing, that what is Cubism? Cubism is when you see different points of view at the same time. But what does it really mean? If you look at a study by Picasso, this is one of the studies. This is a study for the Demoiselles d'Avignon. I hope you are seeing it. And as you can see, you have a man here. And this is what Picasso used to call the student in medicine, medical student, a guy who's studying, he wants to become a doctor. And this guy here in the center is the sailor or the matelot, the guy that comes from the sea. And Avignon is a street in Barcelona that is adjacent to the port, where you had prostitutes, and of course the sailors, when they used to come after a long sailing trip, they used to go and have a kind of orgy with the prostitutes. This is why you have all these naked women around the man in the middle. So what Picasso is saying is the following. He's saying, you see what? Modern art should criticize the fixed point of view which used to characterize practically the whole Renaissance up till almost Cézanne, if you want to make it simple. And we need to really like create a way of seeing that is going to express modernity. What does he mean in this case, modernity? He says, you know what, the eye must be in movement, while in the same time being an eye that analyzes. This is why he needs to have a medical eye, which is here represented with the student in medicine, the eye which is a surgical eye, chirurgical. You have an eye which is really analytical, which is able to dissect what it sees, but in the same time you need the experience of the one who dives into life and experience and into things, and it is only this coupling of analyticity, meaning to have a brainy approach, an intellectual approach, while in the same time a sensual experience, a sensitive and sensual experience, which can incarnate the modern eye, which is, as you know, the scientific eye that you all know about, which is experiments and brainy stuff. Okay. So to make it simple, this is, if you want, one layer. Now, so as you can see in the last painting, in the last finished product, the matelot and the medicine student had disappeared. And what you have left with is a kind of sea of flesh. If you look at this painting, which is quite big, all of this is fleshy. And you see these facets. You see kind of triangles, and they are seen from many points of view. So what is really Picasso painting? He's painting himself in the orgiastic activity. While he's moving, he is depicting what he's seeing. Because what is the problem of the matelot or the sailor? The problem of the sailor is that he's blind. He's just into the object, while the problem of the student in medicine is that he's distant. He's just objectively seeing things at a distance, and he's not really diving into the experience, in this case, the orgy. So what Picasso is saying is very simple. If you want to live it, at least this is how I would interpret it. If you go into a kind of collective sexual experience, you see things really like in Cubism. Why you see things like in Cubism? Because you see a leg above your head, then you look down, you have a view which is someone sleeping. If you look left, you see someone standing, and you have all of these different views taken into one movement. And what Picasso wants to paint is really this kind of awareness of this group. I hope this is more or less clear. You see, he wants to paint something which Deleuze called a liquid image. If you go to the sea, to the beach, to the, the element, the sea, if you are on a boat, and again, you had a sailor, and Avignon is next to the sea. And actually, Picasso used to live, when he painted this painting, by the pure hazard of things in a building called Le Bateau Ivre, the ship which is drunk. And why drunkenness and water brings you into this kind of state where you get out of your subjectivity? Because things start to move and interact on each other. If you are on a boat, what do you really see? You see things, you see the sky, moving and the water moving, and then you see the deck moving and your friends moving, and everything is moving more or less in all directions, not yet totally in all directions, but you have this kind of collective movement that permeates all the elements. So you start seeing things interacting on one another. Okay, so I hope this is more or less clear. So you see what Picasso is saying, if you want to paint really the modern consciousness that's going to break with traditional painting, you have to experience your model, you have to dive into the model, meaning make love or have sex with the model, and all of these themes that became later academic, such as, you know, they paint the vase, they penetrate the vase, and they tear it into pieces, they show you the different views on it, they experience it, they tear its skin, and all of this language that Braque will use later is fundamentally in this experience of the prostitution house, where you have this experience of experimenting with and within the models, seeing them from the different perspectives, and being the consciousness of this group. So in this case, Picasso is, in a way, the perceptive consciousness of this group, which is, in this case, making love together. So what I'm trying to tell you is this. If you contrast that with a painting, a classical painting, who used to be the model? It used to be the queen. And of course, with the queen, you can't do anything. With the queen, you have a distance. You don't have sex or sleep with the queen. It remains there, standing, and you have one position, and you paint this one position. And this is what Picasso is criticizing in this case. He's saying, no, we need a kind of immersive art, an art that's going to capture the collective experience as such by remaining aware of what is going on. So here, if you look at the Braque, just to show you another one, this is Braque. It's a violin with a candle, and you see these facets appearing. And Braque himself used to say you have to tear the skin and put it on the canvas, and all of these themes are already in Les Demoiselles d'Avignon. Now, you see here, this is a portrait of Gertrude Stein. This is before Les Demoiselles d'Avignon, where you had, it was beginning to show this kind of triangulation. And you have other paintings where you see it fully. Now, why it's a triangle? It's a triangle because, as you know, if you go back to the Demoiselles d'Avignon, you see all these triangles because only the triangle is the only universal form, meaning it's the only form that can cover anything. So when you are in movement, what do you see? You start to see things in sections, in triangles, but also the triangle is the only form that can cover all the other forms. For example, if you go to La Géode in Paris, La Géode is covered with triangles. You can't cover it with squares. And if you are paving a street, when you have a denivelation, you have to triangulate because only the triangle can connect to any form. So the triangle for Picasso becomes the plastic solution that can allow him to express the multiplicity of the points of view on the same object. I hope this is clear. So I'll just show you another one to see if you understood. I'll take another one, which is Delaunay. It's not here, Delaunay. So, Futurism Delaunay. So this is by Delaunay. So this is by Delaunay. You can see there's this kind of triangulation going on. This is Les Demoiselles d'Avignon. This is Delaunay. You can feel it's similar, but there is a difference. Now, what's the difference between this one when it comes to the topic, Delaunay, and this one? I'll give you a clue. You see, in Delaunay, what can you see which is not in Les Demoiselles d'Avignon? Anyone? This is Delaunay. He's painting women inside his room. But what else do you have?
The outside, we can see.
Them on the streets, yes.
The street, thank you. So is he more objective or less objective than Picasso?
Less.
What is objectivity? Anyone?
Question.
Objectivity is when you make images interact on each other. So the more they interact, the more objective it is, and the less they interact, the less objective it is. Is this clear?
Yes.
Yeah, so this one, do you have more or less interaction?
More interaction.
You have the Eiffel Tower, you have the canal, you have the inside of the room, you have the outside of the building, you have the sky, and a bit of Montmartre all together. So you see, this is what you call a gaugeous perception. It's even more objective because now it puts practically everything interacting together, while when you look at Les Demoiselles d'Avignon, we are dealing with one group and it is expressing the interactions between one group. Okay? So what's interesting in that? What's interesting in that is not, okay, many point of view, all of that is great, fine. But what's interesting in that is that with this kind of treatment, you can start the perceptive modality of your political vision. I explain. So Picasso, you know, he was in France practically. He lived all his life practically in France, and I think he's expressing the politics of socialism. Now, what is the politics of socialism? You know, socialism. What else you have? Capitalism, and you have, if you go east, communism. So you see, you have these three kind of gradation: communism, socialism, and capitalism. Of course, each one of these political kind of visions will have a peculiar way of building perception. If you are really aware of your socialist belonging, socialism is when you belong to a body of work, to a corps de métier, meaning you belong to a profession. For example, you have the Society of the Carpenters, you have the Society of the Architects, or you know, the Order of the Architects, you have the Society of the Doctors, of the Teachers. This is socialism. Socialism is that you see that you yourself, you acquire your individuality by belonging to a group, and you are really a part of the group. So I'll go back to the boat. Why fishermen were always socialists? The fishermen are socialists, while you know, if you work in exchange, you are a capitalist. And if you work in jewelry, most probably will be today you would be a capitalist. A long time ago, you would be a socialist for technical reasons. But let's stick to the boat example. If you take the boat, you know, when you're on a boat, can you survive alone? Anyone? You know, if you're living on a, if you are really like maneuvering the boat. You see, in a boat, your life depends on the life of your friend, and your friend depends on you. And all of you as a group, you cannot survive if you don't work together as a team. Now, this is socialism. You see, and of course, if you want to express the point of view of this awareness of the group, if you want to express the awareness of the group, meaning how you see yourself not anymore as a strict personal character, this is what you would be as a capitalist, as a centered one individual, you will see yourself individuated in this collective. For example, you are the guy who activates the engine, another guy cleans the ship, another guy does this, that, and all of you together, you are a team which makes this work. So in order to express that, of course, sometimes in cinema, you need a kind of narrative trick. So if you have watched the movie by Grémillon called Remorque, it's a movie where the movie is taken from the point of view of the captain. Now you can tell me, yeah, but if from the point of view of the captain, it's not anymore a liquid image because we're centered on the captain. Yes, but no. Why not? Because the captain is the one who is aware of the work and the contribution of every one of his shipmates. And actually, it's a narrative trick because by showing how things go from the point of view of the captain, you're able to see how the boat on which they work, which is a remorque, meaning a boat that helps other boats when they are in danger. So this remorque, you see hence how each one has its place in this boat. So by doing the movie from the point of view of the captain, you're able to show this collective consciousness, which is the consciousness of the group, and not anymore of an individual. And this is why Remorque as a movie begins as a documentary where you understand how a remorque works. You understand that actually, okay, you need this, you need that, this is how we cook, this is how we sleep, and all of that is seen from the awareness of the captain maneuvering his boat. Now, what happens in remorque is that at one point there's a boat which is sinking, that sends an alarm, and the boat goes to save the other boat. So the remorque goes to save the other boat. And the captain there, who does he encounter? He encounters a woman. And will we go now into drama when he encounters the woman, which is very beautiful, of course. Anyone? Nothing? Are you still here? Huh? Abad. Will we go now into a dramatic section of the movie? Did you hear the question? Did anyone hear? No worries, no worries. So was anyone here when I was saying that? Or I continue? So the question was that, Abad. Now that you're back, okay, I'll tell you the problem I'm trying to explain. Let's we're in this movie called The Remorque by Grémillon, where the movie is taken from the point of view of the captain, and the captain is shown, and from this awareness, we're able to see how the boat works. Because the captain, of course, he's aware of how the boat works. Now, at one point, hence the movie begins as a documentary because you're seeing how the different parts are interacting together. You see how the engine guy interacts with the cook, who interacts with the guy who cleans, etc., etc. So you have this kind of view of all these parts working together. We are in a documentary. Now, the man, the captain, he encounters a woman on a ship which has sent an SOS. Will we now shift into a dramatic structure?
Yes.
Yes.
Why?
Because he met and
because he met.
Because we're not witnessing only the ship, how it's working. Now we're seeing the captain person
relationship,
his own issues to interact with.
So what are we seeing now?
He's like interacting in a different way. He's more sensitive. We're seeing
subjective to the captain.
Wait, yes. 1 second. It's one after the other. So now it's AB speaking. So I don't know why it doesn't write the name. So I think it must be Aya or Anna. Okay.
No, it's Aya.
Okay, Aya. So Aya, yeah. Why now it's dramatic? Why is it dramatic?
I said it is because we're seeing a different side of it. So it became more. It's not as objective as it was before. Like we're not just seeing his perspective of the people on the boat. We're seeing how he's reacting to something more emotional.
Yeah, but you see, it's all to say emotional is vague, and this course is about that. When I say, now it's emotional, yeah, but in the image, what will happen now when he encounters the woman?
It's subjective. It will become subjective.
Why?
Because
He's in love, yeah. Why when you're in love it becomes subjective?
Okay.
Because
well, we shifted focus from the crew to his personal something that has nothing to do with the boat, to the captain. And we shifted
who is going to become now the center of interest and focus?
The captain, not the crew.
Captain.
One consciousness, not
the captain or who?
And the woman.
The woman, of course. Okay, yes, when you fall in love, why your life becomes subjective? You can't tell me because love is subjective. No, you have to remember that we do images, so you can't just bring explanation from psychology. You have to speak the image, because now you see your wife or your girlfriend all the time. This is why it's subjective. That's all. You can tell, yeah, it's because you're in love, yes, but we don't care. In the image now, how will the movie be constructed? It will be constructed around the woman. So you will see her all the time. Okay? So as you can see now, the movie gets centered around the center, which is, in this case, we call it a point of subjectivation, which is the woman. And the whole life of this shipmate, the Matlock, the captain, is going to be to go towards his woman and to go away from his woman and to go back to his woman. And you see, this is what you call a center of subjectivation. We moved into the solid way of perceiving. Did you get how it? You see, when you are in the sea, you move freely. You stop wherever you want and you go wherever you want. As you know, in a liquid element, you can throw the anchor here or there. So the points are in between movements and not movements in between points. We live in a capitalist solid world because we move between points. You go to work, you go back home, and then from home to work, and if you're lucky, you go a little bit to the bar, and then you go back home, and so on and so forth, and you are living in this kind of, you are living in traction, as you say, you go from one point to the other, while when you are in a liquid perception, you are immersed, and you feel that when you move, you leave behind you points of stop, which is I throw the anchor here, I throw the anchor there. And this is why, of course, you are going to have a kind of conflict now between the old life of the captain and his new life as a husband. Because in his perceptive world, now he is confined. Now he is really like reduced to this role where he has to go here, then there, back home, to the bar, etc. And where is the conflict going to be, of course? What would he like to do at one point? Anyone? If you are hearing me. Anyone? At one point, this guy, what would he like to do? After, he has spent a year with his wife, what does he want now?
To go back to the
back to the sea, and will his wife be very happy about that?
Probably not.
Huh? No, why not? Why not?
Because he's not seeing her every day.
So, Aya, because I'll call you by your name. So, Aya, who was speaking?
Because he's not gonna be seeing her anymore, like.
Yes, because she's not going to be anymore.
She's not going to be the center of the center of attention anymore.
Exactly. And where do you think the conflict will happen? At one point in the movie, he hears the alarm, the SOS calls, and he runs towards his ship, and his wife runs towards him. And where is the dramatic scene? Where is going to happen? It happens. It happens where? It happens on the line separating water from the earth. It happens on the docks, because this is where the separation point is going to be. You see how you structure your image? You see, she is a terrestrial, Terrian kind of character. She's centered, she's a center, and he is aquatic, he's liquid, and he's attracted by the sea because it's a whole different life. Even if you don't have your beloved one, It's a life where you feel that you're not anymore just one person. You feel that you are a group. And the conflict between the personal and the individual, if you can call it like that, or the group and the personal, happens on the line, which is, as Gramillon does it very well, on the line, which is on the docks. This is where the conflict, and this is where the woman starts to cry, and he has to leave, he cries too, and then he leaves. And when he leaves and he's in the sea, he sees the reflection of the face of his wife in the sea, so it becomes one of the parts and not anymore the center as such. Okay, so I hope now you're getting, or you're becoming a little bit sensitive to these treatments. Now, this is what you call socialism, and you have seen how socialism can go or can oscillate and can go towards capitalism, meaning a centered vision. Now, why the centered vision is really coupled with capital? Because as you know, and here I really insist on that, I hope you will re-listen to this or get it or ask me a question about it. You see, the political vision of capitalism, which was born in the United States in the 18th, 19th century, is that Jefferson, which was one of the American presidents, he used to tell to the immigrants there, wherever there was an economical crisis, he used to tell them, go west, which became a motto, go west. What does go west mean? Because you know the immigration in the States used to reach the eastern shore, New York, and whenever you had an economical crisis, they used to whenever you had an economical crisis, Jefferson used to, in order to solve the economical crisis, used to tell the people living on the east coast, go west. Now, how was it done? It was done via a competition and a race. You take your horse, and the state organizes a race. There's a very bad movie with Tom Cruise about that. And the people really do the race, and the first one who gets to the land, he owns the land, and he can start realizing the American dream, where he lives in his farm and he owns this land. So as you can see, in the genesis of the American dream, you already have this centered vision. What is the center? Here is your farm. And what do you own? You own practically a lot of land, everything which is around your farm, and you are the center of this world. An image that illustrates that very well is the Western cowboy, which is standing alone on his horse, and the whole horizon is centered around him. I hope now you see the coupling between the history, go west, and this image, which became like the crystallization of this history, which is the cowboy standing alone on his horse. He's this kind of person. It's very it's very individual, but not as a group. He's like the absolute subject, and the whole horizon connects to him. So you have images like that. Huh? This is from The Searcher. It's a movie by John Ford, and you see how the woman, which is conquering the land, and the whole land around her is practically hers. So the whole horizon now refers to this absolute center, which is the house, in the prairie, as they say. So what I'm trying to tell you is this. Of course, where will be the conflict here? Who is the enemy when it comes to go west? Abbad, Anna, Aya, or anyone? Abbad, who is the enemy when you go west?
The enemy بالنسبة لجيفرسون ولا؟
بالنسبة لجيفرسون and the cowboys, who is the enemy?
The immigrants.
Are the immigrants the enemy, or who is going to stop them from going west? You know these things. Cowboys are against who?
The Indians
Indians, yeah, of course. Everyone who is not an immigrant is the enemy because they are the autochthons. And you to survive, what do you need to do? You need to push the horizon. It's an expression by Deleuze, which is to survive in the Wild West, you need to push the horizon. Why? Because you need new land, you need to conquer land, and this is the individual relation to the horizon, which is also a vital relation. And who is going to oppose that? If we take Anna, are you here?
I don't think Anna. I think she's disconnected.
So who is AE?
This is no.
AE
no,
is
Abbad.
Abbad.
Abbad is AE. So who is AB? Is Aya.
Aya, and there's Leticia also.
So Leticia. Where do you think the conflict must be?
Leticia is gone now.
Leticia is gone. So who is left here? Noor.
Me and Abbad.
You are Abbad only. Okay, that's great. So anyway, so Aya, where do you think the conflict would be? If you have watched a Western, from where do the Indian appear? Remember a Western. You remember where they appear?
No.
No. So they appear on the horizon. So
okay.
If you take John Ford, which I think really understood very well his history of the Wild West, John Ford, he makes the Indian appear on the sky. And here I think here you have a plastic problem, which is your enemy, your story is to push the horizon to conquer land. I hope this point is clear. Now, if you want to push the horizon, of course the enemy will appear at the horizon. But here you have a plastic problem. If you show the Indians, like in the picture here, at the horizon, it's not very interesting. You're seeing the picture and the mouse? Yeah?
We're seeing a bit. I'm seeing a picture. Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Can you see the cross?
Yeah.
Okay. So you see, if you make the Indian appears here on the horizon, is it interesting for the dramatic tension here?
No.
No, why not?
Yeah. Because they're still too far, and like we're not actually seeing them.
Wonderful. Now we're getting into image talk. Where would you make them appear on this image here, on the background of the sky, for it to be more dramatic? If you want to pick a spot, from where should they appear?
Maybe from من ورا الروck.
من ورا الروck. Where? Here? Down?
sorry نقطع شوي. maybe من هون وراها لهيدي or يعني close enough.
Okay, or on top of the rocks on the left.
Great. So let's take these two options: on top of the rocks or from behind the rock. Which one is better?
I don't know.
You should know. If your problem is if you think that the Indians are what prevents you from pushing the horizon further, where should you see them? With what as a background?
With the horizon as a background.
With the horizon, yeah.
Meaning the sky, right?
Yeah.
So if they appear here, wouldn't it be much better as an image?
Yeah.
Okay, so I hope you're getting how you do. If the guy comes out from here, well, it's not that interesting as an image that incarnates the history of the Wild West. And this is why indeed John Ford makes his Indians always appear on the cliffs. They appear up there. Why they appear up there? Because he needs to show you that the Indian is what stands in the face of the horizon. And you need to shoot him if you want to conquer the horizon. I hope you're getting now how it works. Is it clear?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So now let's look at the painter now. If you look now at a painter, which is an American painter very well known as this. Can you see Hopper's painting? You see?
Yeah.
You see how it's centered, the relation to the horizon? Now this is the decay of the American dream. It's, John Ford was the golden age of the American dream, or he's trying to picture the golden age of the American dream. And here you have really like the decay of the American dream, and yet you still have the relation to the horizon. But now you feel that the city is a kind of closure on the individual, even if the individual still relates to this kind of horizon. Now, what do you see in this picture? You see in this picture a relation between what and what? An inside and an outside. Do you see it? You have the private space and the public space, in, out. If you look at this, you have the inside as opposed to the outside. When you look at this, do you have an inside and an outside? Huh?
Yes. At this picture. This
one?
Video, no.
Do you have really an inside as opposed to an outside? Or is it all floating together?
Here it's all floating together.
Okay. So this is what I'm getting at. You see, when you take socialism, okay, this one maybe it looks, it's not a good one. If you take this one, you lose the limits between what is a private space and a public space. This is when you take socialism. In socialism, you are really diving in an element. You feel that you're swimming into a little chunk of space-time. When you are a capitalist, you feel that you have an opposition between in and out, that you can see another painting by Hopper, like here, a room in the city. You see that you have the view from the out towards the in, or from the in towards the out. And this is really where the tension is. This is why you have this kind of alternation. While in the liquid, you swim in it, and everything interacts together. Now, if you move towards communism, communism is, as we have seen in Delaunay, but also it is a vision where you're not just interacting as a group, you're interacting as a whole nation and even as a whole world, meaning the whole world is one unity, as in the communist dream. So here I'll show you interaction. So now you see that the images are interacting in all directions on each other, and you don't have anymore a center that grounds you or a group that grounds you. You are really accessing a kind of ideational vision of the world, which is that we are one humanity, and this humanity, all of it interact together to be able to live on Earth. And this is what was pictured by Vertov in The Man with the Movie Camera. So if you watch this thing.
Hello?
Yes?
Okay, so, sorry, قطعنا شوي.
Noise. So this is a man with a movie camera. I hope you'll notice how the images are interacting together. See, now he is with the miner. Now he's with the one working on the phone. He's in a plant. And now notice this gesture of turning. And he's turning too. And the man here is also turning, the guy doing the steel. See, and the machine is turning. I'll jump here. The water too is turning. The machines. Water. This is a match factory. I hope you're remembering Delaunay here. Delaunay with the superpositions. See this accelerated montage overlayering that you see here. Okay, I hope you got the idea. You see, what Vertov is saying is that he's using the camera in order to connect any 2 points in Russia, and he shows you that by doing that, he shows you that everyone is connected in Russia, and he sometimes uses the same movements, which is the turning the camera, turning the plant, turning whatever you're doing. You have this wheel that turns and turns everywhere. And this is how you see that there's a relation between all the people who live in Russia. Okay, I hope you're getting this kind of way of doing it. And you see that now everyone is correlated. Is this clear, Abad and Aya?
Yes, clear.
Great. So now I hope you're seeing that you have, in the real definition, you have different degrees of movement image. Am I going to make the images move all together on each other? This would be like the communist vision or universal interaction. Am I going to center the images on one image and make them all revolve around the center? This would be the capitalist vision or capitalism. Or am I going to get immersed in an element or in a group? This would be the socialist vision, or if you want, France, which is in the middle. Now, to conclude the course of today, we still have one way of looking at perception. So you see, you have a lot in perception. Actually, you have a lot all the time in everything. So what you call the genetic definition. So you have a nominal definition, which is here, nominal, which is subjective, objective, semi-subjective, and free and direct. You have the real definition, where you really just look at how the images relate to each other, and not anymore, I call this the perceived, and I call that the perceiving. And last, you have something called the genetic. The genetic definition of perception, which is you are going to make an image that shows you how perception is born. Or you're going to make an image that shows you how you have a perception, or from where you get perception. Okay? Now, in here you have 3 major categories, which are the structure, the substrate, and the substance, which correspond more or less to the 3 in each time. But you will get used to that soon. And if you take if you take someone like Seurat, or the Impressionism. Seurat, as you can see, this is a painting called Sunday Afternoon. And you see how Seurat proceeds? He is going to decompose the color with a very limited set of basic colors. You have, I think he uses 8 or 7 colors, but only with these 7 colors he's able to make all the different nuances you have here. To make it simple, even though it's not accurate, if you take this violet, he's not really using violet, he only uses red and green and yellow. So he uses many colors in order to get this hue. Hope you're getting what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that be it Pointillism or later, or if you take someone like Monet, Impressionism. In Impressionism, what Monet tried to do, or some of the Impressionists, especially the divisionists among them, is that to convey the colors by using only the basic elementary colors. Now, what does this mean? This not always applies, or by using a very limited palette. This means that when you see green, let's suppose you are a divisionist and not Seurat, actually you don't have green, what you have are points of yellow and blue. But when you are standing from a distance, what do you see? You see actually green because they got mixed in your eye. Now when you get close to the painting, you see that there's no green but only yellow and blue. This is what you call an image that shows you the origin of what you see. I hope this point is more or less clear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I can show you in an image or in 2 images, because here you have already a montage in the painting. You get close to a Seurat or a divisionist painter, you see that the colors that you were seeing from 3 meters are not there. So now you have 2 images. The image which is the origin, and the image which is what you see, which is the phenomenal image. Or as we say, you have the material and the appearance of this material, and perception can be taken into this game between its material and how it appears. Now, many artists are going to really like inhabit, if you want, this domain of the origin of something. If you take someone like like Ortega. So Ortega, he makes sculptures like that. You know Ortega? Abad, do you know Ortega?
No.
No, you don't know Ortega. So it's good. Now you know him. So Ortega, what he does is that he decomposes cars. This is his artistic intervention. And what happens when he decomposes cars? Do you now understand and see from where the Volkswagen came from? Do you see that? Do you see the origin of the Volkswagen?
Yeah.
Yeah, so actually he plays on that. Shows you that what looks like this entity, which is in one piece, which is a Volkswagen, actually you have all these tiny, tiny little pieces. And when you go there, you have this kind of joy or thrill to see how all of these things are connected and standing together. But you have also, with this image, the other image, which is the complete Volkswagen. And this is why how he shows you the structure, in this case, the structure which is the origin of this object. Now, of course, these are what you call exploded models. Now, what's interesting here is that you show the relation of the different parts together, like when you make a section, a drawing, where you see the relation of the different parts together. This is how you see the relations of the part and the way the thing is made of, hence its origin. So a way to do it is, as we say, via modeling. Modeling is by creating models is a way to show you the origin of something. You can create sections, you can create diagrams. All of these are different visual ways to show you the origin of something. Now you have another thing which is called simulation, which is different from modeling. You see, in simulation, what you do is, it's not that you expose the relation of things in relation to each other, but you are going to put the object at your disposition. I think you are all we are all acquainted with the simulations where you're able to move freely inside an object. Now, the interesting part is not here. The interesting part is, when do you have a simulation? You have a simulation when your object is brought to a standstill, when your object is actually frozen, not frozen, but when your object is actually without anything moving. This is when you have it at your disposition. For example, this is an image from New York during Corona. You feel that now you can move the way you want, and the city is at your disposition. When you have a simulation model in your hand, and you can, or in your 3D program, and you can turn it the way you want and go inside and outside and all of these things, this is what you call a simulation, because the object is given to you, it is at your disposition. I'll show you a clip from René Clair, Paris d'Or, where you see the city at the disposition of the person. This is why it looks like a simulation, and this is why it gives you a degree of freedom similar to the degree of freedoms that you have in 3D simulations. So this is Paris d'Or by René Clair. It's the story of a mad scientist who has frozen Paris, but a guy was on the Tour Eiffel when that happened, so he goes down and he's walking in frozen Paris. You see how the city now is at the disposition.
Can you? Yes, thank you.
Okay, so I hope you're getting that. You see, it's like this thing here. And I'm trying to tell you, I don't know if you remember your Corona days when it was a lockdown. When you go down the street and you can do whatever you want, it's as if now the city is at your disposition. It's not anymore this kind of grid of interactions. It becomes a pure thing in which you can circulate the way you want. And this is, if you want, the kind of the simulation component and the thrill about that. Now, what's interesting is this: if you can do something about that, you know, if you can, for example, show how if you can show how an object becomes liberated from the constraints when you freeze all the movements around. So if you want, for the structure is really like showing the structure of something, either via simulation or via modeling or via morphing. And here you have, again, many modalities to perceive, because, for example, in simulation, you can capture the object by stopping all the movements around it. I hope this idea is clear. This is how the city becomes visible all of a sudden, because nothing is moving anymore. This is one way to go. Another way to go is to capture movement via simulation, meaning via movement itself. So if you look at this, here you're able to see, here you are able to see how water reacts, how this experiment, how water reacts by making the camera turn around the cup. This is how you can see. So this is how, in this case, movement is allowing you to see, because you're able here to capture, as you can see, the different sides, while movement itself is bringing to disposition this thing. And here you see in detail the origin of that movement, which usually you cannot see. And you have all of these images that bring to your disposition this perception. Okay, I hope you had this point. And of course, you have simulations like in previews where you can see ahead. This is what you call augmented reality. And it shows you where you have to hit the ball in order for you to get it right. Okay. So anyway, these are different perceptive modalities that put the object at your disposition, that reveal the structure of what is going on. So in the substrate, we have seen something else, which is the Impressionist and Seurat, le Pointilliste, where you see actually the origin of the image, the origin of the photo, which is made of grains. Seurat shows you that the origin of an image that you see is made of little atoms of colors, and you can see this origin by getting close to the painting and away from the painting, and you see that your visual field has an origin, which is a material, which is in this case the origin of that. Now you can show also the origin of movement as an image. For example, here you will show that the origin of movement is a still image, and then you can show that the origin of the still image is a grain. So this is Vertov again. These are the images. He shows you the first origin, the guy filming them. So what is being filmed and the filming. Then here he shows you the stills, which are what we call photogram, which is what the movie is made of. You see the stills. And now he's showing you the montage table, the editing table, where you see the reel of the images. Then now you see the moving image, and from where it comes, its origin. This is the appearance, the origin of the image, and again the image. So, did you see that? Did you get that? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, now what's interesting in that? So interesting in that is not just for you to know, oh yeah, okay, I can do this, I can do that. It's to know what you can do with that. What's interesting in the photogram is what? Is that now you can go to anywhere from the montage table. I don't know if you noticed that. Because you are on an editing table, because you jumped into the material realm, and in the material realm, everything is everything is connected literally. Now you are in the material dimension of the image that you see. You can now go towards a child, you can go towards a train, you can go towards a home, you can go wherever you want. So if you're looking at this recorded session, you see why I can go to anywhere. Because this screen that you see, or if you are doing a presentation, PowerPoint or something like that, the screen is the material dimension of everything you see. So I can now, by going back to the screen, jump to any image that I want. And this is what the origin allows you to do when you have stops. So when you have stops, what is interesting? What is interesting is that when you have stops like the photograms that you have seen in Vertov, the image of the child that doesn't move, is that he can then jump towards the child, and then he can go back to the editing table and go towards the train or towards wherever he wants. It becomes a commutator of movement, which is an absolute movement. You can go wherever you want. I hope this first point is clear. So if you're doing a presentation or a movie, and in your movie you show where the movie is made, you will be able to jump in the movie or in your artistic piece or in your video, wherever you want, without worrying about the order of the sequence. And this is a very, I think, powerful tool to be able to show things as related or coming from this origin. You see the stills, it's different. While stops relate to this kind of jump that you can make towards any image, in stills, what's really interesting, as you can see in the Seurat, is that a movement is brought to stillness. And I think this is a very interesting treatment, because what happens when you divide in painting when you have a regular brush stroke, what happens is that the light is reflected evenly, and actually everything seems to move at the same speed. So you have this effect of stillness, of homogenization of the impact the color have on you, and you feel that everything is still. I hope now you're getting this difference. So as you can see in stills, you decompose the perception into the grams, into the little vibration, and this is how you can capture now any movement with the same homogeneous kind of treatment. I hope you're getting this idea. Okay, now you have a third degree, which is even more frozen, which is the freeze. If you take the painting of Genadri, which is a Lebanese painter, you have paintings like that, which are freezes. Not this one. There's one called, this one is called Quiet, where you see that everything, it's as if everything doesn't move, which is the higher degree of this stillness. Sorry, 1 minute, I have someone, 1 second. Okay, wait 1 second. Okay, sorry for the interruption. So, so you see here you are able to capture all the movements in the same speed. So to conclude, still have a pack. But just to conclude on that, and you'll be able to explore these, and if you're interested on them, we can talk about them later. A higher degree of perception is when matter itself, not anymore the relation between movement and rest, where matter itself reverses into something else. What does it mean? If you take now the glow by Ginaldry here, you see this is a painting where actually this is an empty canvas, it's a material thing, but it looks like light. And you have here the reversal between matter and light. If you take someone like Turner, light and color, you also have this treatment of a blinding material which becomes light. All of this is material paint, but it is transfigured into light. Into this case, you have this kind of effect of void and light. Now, if you take another one, I'll show you one by Belson. Belson deals with light as such, and you don't know anymore if you are into a kind of in the inner world or in the material as such. Because as you know, in this ontology, matter is vibration, and Belson shows these vibrations, and you don't know anymore if it's a mental entity or if it's a material entity. Sorry for that. So I hope it's clear. So see, what I'm trying to explain to you here, just to really conclude on that, I'm trying to tell you that at one point, perception as such, when you take it to its origin, the origin of perception is matter, it can start reversing into something else. In Belson, a kind of material vibration of light starts to look like a spiritual vibration, or you don't know anymore if you are inside or outside. I don't know if you have watched Space Odyssey 2001.
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
you see, towards the end of the movie, when the guy goes into this kind of intergalactical trip, and he starts seeing these shapes, you don't know anymore if they are coming out of his mind or if they are matter itself. What I'm trying to tell you is that in perception, you could express at one point shapes which are material and light, but also and mainly that blur the line between your spiritual apprehension and the material world. It's as if the spirit itself becomes matter. Now, this is, if you want, for this line where the material itself becomes charged as if it's a spiritual image, or you have images where the material itself becomes light, or it becomes a pure void of color, like in Turner and Ginaldry. So the last one I'm going to show you is the one who relates to force, which is Pollock. See, Pollock thinks that the origin of perception is the forces of nature, the force of gravity. And here, if you look at this painting, you see, can your eye go to any point at any point? Do you see that your eye can travel on this surface, which is a thing that you cannot do with something like that? Here your eye goes from this figure to that figure, and you don't feel that your eye is present equally in all the points. What I'm trying to tell you here is that what Pollock does is that he presents you a web of material interaction, and this web of material interaction allows you to have a simultaneous perception of everything in the same time, which is actually the perception of matter itself. Because when you decenter the vision, your vision becomes material, meaning you see everything in the same time, which I think is quite well achieved in the work of Pollock, which he used to call himself a force of nature. And this is a perception of the forces as such. And here you can't anymore stop at a figure or at anything. Your eye moves from one point to the other, and he sees all the points together in the same time. So if you want, these are the different modalities of perceptions and what you can do with that. So you can either express forces like Pollock, Clair, and Kandinsky. We'll see that Clair and Kandinsky later. You can express a spiritual insight via the vibration, and here you have a meeting point. Or you can express a total void that reverses into matter, and vice versa, and all the other things. Is this clear?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, it's clear. So if I show you that, if I show you this, can you tell me where this can go? This is Région Centrale by Michael Snow. What type of perception is this? So where would you put that?
Maybe internal and external, like.
Yeah. Do you feel internal, external here? Yeah. Tell me why internal, external.
Because it's like we're seeing the outside, and like what's happening around us and everything.
Yeah.
But at the same time, by how the image is taken, it's kind of also like somebody is feeling it. Like,
yeah.
I don't know if I know how. I don't know if I knew how to explain it, but
this is the whole problem. You feel that here there's a center, but at the same time, all these images are varying on each other, right or no? If you want to describe the image, this is really the problem. how would you describe what you see?
I think internal.
So, for example, does this thing remind you of Hopper? Is it like Hopper? Is it like this? Is it like where is she?
The ladies out.
Is it like this? Is it like this or no?
Yeah.
This. Is it
yes, but it's more. But it's
blue. You see what I'm trying to say is, can you really say, is this a centered image? The one you just. No. Why not?
Because it's different.
Because Abbad, yeah.
Because we have many different elements to it. يعني هونيك we only see the horizon still image. هون there's not only the horizon, في many stuff we're moving to.
No worries. Imagine that this image is moving too, the one in the western. The problem is not that it's not moving. So
the problem is that there's more elements in the other one.
What are the elements?
There's in the picture of Hopper, there's the lady and there's the roof and like the grass.
Are these more elements or one element? Are there more elements here or there? You have more elements.
I think the first, the lady one, لأنه there is the lady that is standing والbackground. هون في only the openness of the هونيك في عنا 2 layers of things إذا بدك اللي هو the lady standing.
The perspective is different. Like you see the horizon and then you see closer to you the lady and the like there's different perspectives in the picture.
Where you have different perspective? Here in the lady or here?
Yes, in the lady.
Well, it's very weird. May I see one perspective? It means that you see how difficult it is. Don't you see here more things interacting upside down, left, right, horizontal, earth, sky?
That's what I meant by, and we have more elements to it. يعني في more movement. That's what I meant with movement. إنه هون عم يضرب الكاميرا وعم نشوفها up and down rotating. هونيك still frame probably يعني or maybe slightly moving.
So what are the elements here? You have 2 elements. You have the subject and the horizon. You have the perceived and the perceiving, and that's it. And you have one fixed way of relating everything to one. Is it clear? You see, I don't have. And do you see how much language can take you astray? Language loses you. Because now you think that here there's many elements because you see grass and this and that. But actually, no. You also have here grass and this and that. The problem is not here. The problem is the movement of the images and not just what's inside the image. So do you have more elements here or here? Where do you have more interaction? Here?
Okay, it's in the video. It's in the video. Okay.
So when you want to assess an image, you have to look at, if you want to assess it as a real image, you have to look at the degree of interaction. This image, does it remind you of Vertov, the interaction of Vertov? Does it relate a bit to that?
Yes.
If you put them next to each other, do they relate? This here when you jump from one place to the other, and here you're moving in the same place, but it's interacting. Do you see a relation?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Now, this is something, and seeing this, I hope you see now it's something else. Is it clear?
Yeah.
Hopper, you feel that the whole thing it doesn't move, it's solid. And even if you remember the image, the movie clip in Deserto Rosso by Antonioni, the woman, does it move a lot with the woman? You know, the woman I showed you in the modern house? Yes, no?
Which one? Which woman?
Here in the free and direct Antonioni. This one. This one.
Just a second.
Now you put this next to that. This thing must become very clear. This one. And you have this.
No, it's completely different. Yeah.
It's completely different. Do you feel here that you have a kind of very rigid frame here?
Yeah.
Okay. You feel the house rigid, you move in, you're contained. Okay. So these things, you should become aware of them. Okay. Now, when you make things move, so actually, the région centrale is very close to the interactionism or to the universal interaction of someone like Vertov that you have seen. So he's here. You have Vertov, you have braquage, snow. So snow and simultaneism and Vertov, they're all, you know, into this kind of interaction where you see images interacting on each other, which is different from something like Belson, where you have vibrations and because they are vibrations, they start taking all the different shapes. Do you get the difference now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. See, you have this and you have snow. See, snow, the mountain cannot take a different shape. The mountain is the mountain and you're just interacting with its images. While here, as you can see in this animation to the right, anything can pop up from that screen. Do you see it?
Yeah. It's
yes.
So Aya, this is for you because you see how delicate it is.
Yes, I do. Now I kind of understood. At first, it was a bit.
Yeah, if you use words, you can slip on words. You can say yes.
Exactly.
If it looks like someone is looking here, and yes, it's inside outside. It's words. But if you look at that, here, because the vibration creates all the different forms and shapes, this is why you are in an inside-outside. This is the only reason, actually. While here, you're not in an inside-outside because the shapes are already given, and all what you're doing is that you are making them interact. Why the shapes? Yeah, in your imagination, can the shape appear in a random order in your inside?
Excuse me?
Can you imagine a trees and a hose, then, and you see things just in your inside, in your imagination?
Okay.
If I tell you now, imagine a horse, then a tree, then a crocodile, can you do that?
Yes, I can.
You can. So this is why this is inside-outside, because this generates any form from the background. While this is not inside-outside because the forms are given. You can't do anything about it. Did you get the difference now?
Yes.
Okay. So this course is about that. I want you to become sensitive on this kind of things. Don't get carried away with your language. Okay?
Okay.
So that's it for today. I hope you will practice that because it's very difficult to know where an image is. You can play the game. Show someone an image, ask him, is this the perception? We'll see later affection and all the other types. And you see how difficult it is to know what kind of image this is. It's very easy, on the other hand, to just speak about the image. Okay?
All right, agreed.
That's it for today. Thank you for your patience, and sorry if I was a bit longer, but you know, these things take time. Okay?
Yeah, so fine.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Around Okay, anytime. Thank you for being here.
Goodbye.
Bye.